The NFL has never seen a monster like this. Matthew Stafford's MVP arm, Myles Garrett's unstoppable force, and the possible return of Aaron Donald could create the most terrifying defense-offense combination in football history. But can the Rams survive the weight of impossible expectations?
When the LA Rams open their season in Melbourne, Australia next month, the world is going to witness something it has never witnessed before. For the first time, the NFL's reigning MVP and Defensive Player of the Year will be lining up in the same game wearing the same uniform. Thanks to one of the biggest trades we've ever seen in sports, two of the game's very best are now teammates. Matthew Stafford, Myles Garrett, and maybe another former Defensive Player of the Year added to the mix too. The Stars, they are aligning for a team that's favored to both host and possibly win this year's Super Bowl. And with that, we head to LA and say hello to CBS Sports NFL analyst Bryant McFadden, who's been embedded with the Rams this weekend. Okay, B-Mac, this Rams team feels like it's on the verge of something special this season. We'll get into that, but let's start with the man behind center, John Matthew Stafford. He's entering his age 38 season, and last year he played like he was still 28. What makes you believe he'll be able to keep performing this season at such a high level?
Because basically when you look at training camp, he's starting right where he left off at, in my opinion. When you talk about that MVP season, right now so far throughout camp, man, Stafford has been wheeling and dealing. And a few no-look passes here or there. But he's been on point. The offense has been on point. And if you go back to a year ago, around this time during training camp, remember, Coley, Matthew Stafford wasn't able to participate because he was dealing with a back injury. So he missed pretty much the entire training camp regimen, but still had an MVP-like year. Now he's healthy. He's participating with his teammates. He's out here on the grass in the huddle. He looks phenomenal, and that is a scary thing to hear if you're an opposing defense that will face off against the Rams led by Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, that's a scary thing for me to hear, and I don't even have to line up against him at all. Now, as we mentioned earlier, Stafford's just one piece to the all-star pie that they're going to have at SoFi this year. Edge rusher Myles Garrett, of course, is coming to the Rams via trade, and he's got massive expectations heaped upon his shoulders. What's reasonable for this defense to expect out of him this season?
Well, I mean, anything north of 17 sacks, and that's the bottom number.
Right.
That's the worst case scenario. 17 is the bottom number. But when you talk about Myles Garrett, throughout his professional career, Coley, in Cleveland, he's been a dominating force. But now he has embarked in a territory he's never been a part of, a championship-like atmosphere. Think about it. So now he has a new sense of motivation being here in the Rams organization, because for the very first time, he's a part of a team that potentially could hoist the sticky Lombardi when it's all said and done. So you know he was already going to give you his best effort because that's just the player he is. But now he understands the final game, I may be playing for a championship. Good luck. Good luck. And he's been as good as advertised.
Yeah, you certainly do expect that. Now, Myles Garrett had a whopping 23 sacks last season. It's still unbelievable that Garrett had that many sacks. What is believable is the fact that he might get a few sacks stolen from him this season if Aaron Donald indeed returns to the Rams. Now, B-Mac, we saw your body language conversation with head coach Sean McVay. So I'm going to ask you, is Aaron Donald returning? And if so, how should we read into the hype surrounding his potential return from retirement?
Yeah, Cody, based on my conversation with the head man in charge here, he's coming back. That's what I gathered from that conversation, and you watched it as well. He is coming back. And I also gathered that he may be coming back sooner than later, because I kind of visualize if Aaron Donald was to return, maybe it could be in the month of late October or November. But talking to Coach Sean McVay, it feels like Aaron Donald could make a September appearance back in uniform. And if that's the case, how do you stop them? Essentially, what we would watch if Aaron Donald was to return, Coley, we essentially would watch Lawrence Taylor and the late, great Reggie White playing alongside each other. Wow. That's essentially what they would have here out in La La Land. Basically, Aaron Donald, he's that type of force. Myles Garrett is that type of force. In this era, that's who they represent. That's like their NFL comp, in my opinion, if they were to play together. And like I said, how do you slow that down?
Now, speaking of the Rams, the biggest question mark for them entering this season is going to be what?
Living up to the hype and the expectations, because coming into our segment, you talk about doing something in the NFL that we've never seen before. The reigning league MVP and defensive MVP playing alongside each other on the same team. We've never seen that before. When you talk about potentially adding another defensive MVP in Aaron Donald, now the expectations, they rise higher. So just living up to the hype and the expectations week in and week out. Every week, the Rams, they will have the utmost expectations and hype tied to them. So just living under that scope the entire season, because when you talk about this team, we're talking about the Rams as if they won the championship last year.
The NFL may have just created something it has never seen before. A quarterback playing at an MVP level. A defensive player of the year destroying everything in his path. And a legend who could return to create the most terrifying defense in football. Matthew Stafford, Myles Garrett, Aaron Donald. 3 names. 1 team. 1 impossible expectation. When the Los Angeles Rams open their season in Melbourne, Australia, the football world could witness history. For the first time ever, the reigning MVP and the reigning Defensive Player of the Year could step onto the same field wearing the same uniform. One player controls the game with his arm. The other controls the game by making quarterbacks fear every single snap. And if Aaron Donald returns, the Rams would not just have a talented roster. They would have a football monster. But here is the question that could define their entire season. Can Los Angeles handle the pressure of becoming the team everyone expects to win? Because right now, the Rams are not chasing respect. They are chasing greatness. And the entire NFL is watching. But before we talk about a historic defense, everything starts with the man who controls the Rams' championship dream, Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford is entering his age 38 season. At this stage of a quarterback's career, most players are fighting against time. Stafford is fighting against expectations. Because last season, he played like a quarterback who was nowhere near finished. His arm strength remained elite. His accuracy remained dangerous. And his confidence never disappeared. The impossible throws that made defenders panic continue to appear every Sunday. But the most impressive part? He did it after one of the toughest preparation periods of his career. During the previous training camp, Stafford was limited by a back injury and missed valuable preparation time. Many questioned whether his body could survive another season. Instead, he answered with MVP-level football. Now the situation has changed completely. He is healthy. He is practicing every day. He is building chemistry with his receivers. And that creates a terrifying problem for every defense in the league. A healthy Matthew Stafford with Sean McVay's offense is a completely different challenge. Because Stafford does not need many chances. Give him one mistake, one open receiver, one moment of hesitation, and he can destroy a defense instantly. But the Rams know offense alone does not win championships. That is why their biggest move was not about scoring more points. It was about creating fear. The Rams did not trade for Myles Garrett to simply improve their defense. They traded for him because they wanted to create a nightmare. For years, Garrett has been one of the most dominant defensive players in football. Offensive tackles could prepare all week. Coaches could create game plans. But when Garrett stepped onto the field, none of that guaranteed safety. Because elite pass rushers change games by themselves. Last season, Garrett recorded an incredible 23 sacks. 23! A number that shows complete dominance. Now in Los Angeles, the expectations are even higher. A realistic target? more than 17 sacks. And that might only be the beginning, because Garrett is entering a situation he has never experienced before. He is no longer trying to carry a struggling team. He is joining a championship contender. He finally has a chance to chase the one thing missing from his career: a Super Bowl ring. And when a player with Garrett's talent gets that motivation, the rest of the league should be worried. But the scariest part of this story is not what Myles Garrett can do alone. It is who could potentially line up beside him. Aaron Donald walking away from football shocked the NFL. A 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, a future Hall of Famer, one of the most dominant defenders the sport has ever seen. But now, the possibility of his return has created a wave of excitement around Los Angeles. The belief around the Rams is that Donald could potentially return earlier than many expected. Some believed a comeback would happen around October or November. But September is now being discussed as a possibility. And if Aaron Donald returns, every offensive coordinator in football faces a nightmare. Because imagine this situation. You try to stop Myles Garrett coming from the edge. But when you shift protection outside, Aaron Donald destroys the middle. There is no safe answer. There is no comfortable matchup. It would be a defensive combination rarely seen in NFL history. Garrett represents the most terrifying edge rusher of this generation. Donald represents one of the greatest defenders ever. Together, they could create chaos every single week. But having the most talented roster does not guarantee success. The biggest battle for the Rams may not be against opponents. It may be against the weight of expectations. This is where the Rams face their biggest challenge. Not talent, not experience, pressure. Because when a team has Matthew Stafford, Myles Garrett, and possibly Aaron Donald, anything less than a championship will feel like failure. Every game becomes a test. Every mistake becomes a headline. Every loss becomes a crisis. The NFL has seen super teams collapse before. Talent creates excitement, but expectations create pressure. Right now, people are already talking about the Rams like they have one hand on the Lombardi Trophy. But winning a championship requires more than stars. It requires health, consistency, and the ability to survive when the entire football world is waiting for you to fail. The Rams have built one of the most dangerous rosters in the NFL. Now comes the hardest part, proving that this monster can actually win. Because history does not remember teams because they looked unstoppable. History remembers teams that finished the job. The NFL's most dangerous experiment has begun. Now, the Rams must prove they can survive the hype.
Yo, mic check 1 to 2, -1, -2. Game over for this video, folks. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to stay in the huddle for more. This is NFL Madness, bringing the heat and signing out.